So today we will be discussing war strategy.
Morning, teacher. Good morning. Good
Nice.
morning.
Good morning to everyone who has a morning. Good evening to everyone who has evening. And we will be today discussing two Jātakas, one relatively simple and one very complicated. This Jātaka is actually pretty complicated. And it doesn't really seem to be related to Dhamma, although we will see if we can interpret it in terms of Dhamma. We will be talking about war strategies, how to defeat an army. Literally, no metaphors there. Nope. Very literal, strategic formations and suggestions right from a Buddhist monk. And these strategies are written in our ancient scriptures called Jātaka. So, before we get to that, we will be talking about another Jātaka, and that is Duddada-jātaka, which is definitely easier to understand as Dhamma than the other one, and you will all understand by the end of the lecture today. So I will share with you my screen and we'll get into it in a few seconds. So Duddada-jātaka seems to be very simple. Basically, the Buddha is given a big donation, and then the Buddha says that in his past life, he received a big donation. That's it. Could not be simpler. But we can harvest from this Jataka several more details. So while it is true that the Jataka or the story during the Buddha's time, not the Buddha's previous time yet, uh, is centered around a donation of different people to the Buddha, who each donated whatever they could donate. The Buddha here is giving us an interesting reminder that donation that is done out of faith is always a big thing. All right. And it is a big thing because a donation, even when it is small, because it is made out of faith, it actually brings a huge merit, a huge reward in the future. So, what does that mean? And here we are coming to a certain theory that I have created and that I believe, and I would like to share it with you because this Jataka, as well as many other potential references, could show that it is very probably so. And that is that it's the difficulty that matters. Zoom says that my meeting is over, but apparently it's not. So the point here is that the harder it is to make a merit, the bigger merit it is. So, for example, if you're a king and you have treasure troves of diamonds and pearls and gold and silver, then giving food to a monk is very easy for you. Super easy. And that is why it is a small merit. Why is it a small merit? Because it is super easy to give meal to a monk if you are the king. On the other hand, if you are a poor person who has barely a portion of rice, let's use milk rice because that's usually what we have in the stories of this kind. So suppose that you're a poor person and you have one small portion of milk rice for the whole day. And you work hard. It's not like you sit in front of a computer. That's not what they did in the Buddha's time. So, as a hardworking farmer, you are there working on the farm from morning until the evening, and the only thing to eat is a small portion of milk rice. For those of you who never ate milk rice in Sri Lanka, I suggest that you go to Sri Lanka just and only to eat that. You don't get that in Myanmar, and it's absolutely worth it. So, this immensely delicious meal called milk rice, that one small portion is delicious, but it's not much, and it's for the whole day. Now, suppose that you give that small portion of delicious milk rice, that is the entirety of your meal for the day, to a monk or to the Buddha. That is a huge merit. Why? Because it's difficult. Because it's super difficult. And that's the point. So that's my theory. So the harder it is to make the merit, the bigger reward you will get. That means the more comfort or the more pleasure you will get in the future in return. And that's the point here. So the Buddha here says that where faith is, no gift is small. So when the faith towards the Buddha is huge, then the gift, although small, it is actually huge. So the idea is that the gift is measured based on the availability of the donor. So, for example, a king would give much bigger donation than a poor person because the king can give more, and that's the faith that creates it. So, through faith, the king gives a huge donation. Through faith, the poor person gives a small donation. But because the faith of the king and of the poor person were the same, they both get the same merit. But usually the faith is not exactly the same. So the king, of course, will be more suspicious. The king will be more careful. So the king's faith in the end will most probably end up to be smaller than the immense extreme faith of the poor person who doesn't really have too much to lose, who is not responsible for millions of people, and who is giving anything and everything they have. So in the end, the poor person has more faith, so the poor person gets more merit than the king. Then another thing here is about the hell and heaven. So in Theravada Buddhism, we believe that there is a physical location where living beings only suffer and where there is real fire and real boiling oil in which the beings are boiled, and where are real rivers with very interesting living beings in the shape of needles, and they completely disintegrate the body of anyone who swims there, and that there are hell workers who have long spears, and that there are trees with leaves in the shape of knives, and these hell workers uh, poke the hell beings into their bums so that they force them to climb on those trees. And these hell beings then on those trees suffer immensely. So we believe in Theravada Buddhism that there are literally physical places where this is and where this happens. So if you don't believe that, then you're no more believing in the Theravada Buddhism. So we need to be careful about that. And then we believe that there are literally real physical spaces where there are huge palaces, huge gardens, huge swimming pools with male gods who have thousands and thousands of uh, um, female deities as their wives, and where they enjoy for millions and millions of years immense sensual pleasures without getting sweaty, without perspiration, without being getting any sweat, without getting old, without getting any illnesses, without the need to go to the bathroom, not at all, without any troubles in the way how we know them in the human world. So in Theravada Buddhism, we believe that these physical spaces 100% exist. They're not illusion, they're not metaphor, they're not helpful fairy tales for kids like adults, so that they behave better. Not at all. We believe that they absolutely exist. Not only that we believe that they exist, we also believe that there are monks and that there are lay people, such as the famous Dipa Ma from Bangladesh, but she lived in India a few decades ago, who physically disappear from this world. They physically appear in those physical spaces called hell or heaven, and there they teach Buddha's teachings, or and there they explore who is there and why they suffer or why they enjoy. And then they physically disappear from those spaces and they physically reappear in this human world, and they then share with others what they saw in the hell, in the heaven, what did they learn there, or what did they teach there. So that is Theravada Buddhism. Welcome to Theravada Buddhism. And the Buddha explains that those people who are stingy and who do not really apply any faith when they donate, they will be actually, after they die, after their body is completely disintegrated, or that's maybe not needed, after their body is no more functional, when they die, they will be reborn in the hell. So in the hell, they will be either running around fires and they will be extremely suffering, and they will be locked in a huge hall with metal walls, and they will be trying to get out of that extremely hot environment. Or they will be born in a cauldron, which means a large pot. So they will be born in a large pot, in a cauldron that's filled with boiled oil. And these beings will be basically, or not basically, literally boiled in that boiling oil. And they will suffer, of course. It's not like fun or something like that. No fun. And another option is that they will be born on large metal slabs. That means flat, we could say flat areas that are made of flat spaces. They're made of metal. And as they're lying on this flat metal, they will be cut by the hell workers into small pieces. And as soon as they're cut and they die, they immediately basically reawake right there, still on the metal slab, with complete body, because their body rejoins, recovers, and then they're cut again, and again their body recovers, and they're cut again, and like this again and again and again and again. So these are some of the hells we have explained in our Buddhist scriptures. And there is a hell for those who are stingy as well. But it's not necessarily hell, and that's what the sub-commentary explains. Many stingy people get born in the world of animals, as an animal, as we know, for example, about one of the three wives of Magha, the gentleman who was very generous, and he was building with his 33 friends, or 32, that's a big question for me, with his 32 friends, bridges and we could say, yeah, pavilions. Pavilions for people, for travelers. And one of his wives was not really enthusiastic to build or to give anything. So in her next life, she was born as a goose. And so here we see that while the Buddha said that stingy people will be born in hell, that doesn't necessarily mean hell, but it is a representative word for the four worlds of suffering. So four worlds of suffering are the hell, the animal world, then we have the ghosts, and then we have special kinds of ghost, which is called mhm, Petasuras. And these Petasuras, they are also known as the ghosts on the edge of the world, Lokantarika Niraya. So we believe that there are edges of the world, and at the edge of the world, these beings, they're extremely hungry and they think that there's food, so they run to get the food. But unfortunately, there's a cliff, there's a precipice, and they fall over that precipice down into a kind of acidic, poisonous liquid, and their body disintegrates, and then they reappear again back on the mountain or on the cliff to go run again to get some food. So there are four worlds of suffering like that, and the Buddha explains, or the sub-commentaries explains that the Buddha, when he said stingy people will be born in hell, meant that they will be born in one of these four worlds. And for heaven, that's the same thing. So again, the Buddha said that those who are faithful, generous, they will be born in heaven. That includes also the Brahma world. So all of the 26 heavenly worlds, we have 6 heavens and 20 Brahma worlds. Although I would not expect that those beings will be born as non-percipient beings, but that would be probably too much off topic to explain here. Okay, so deep mechanics of Gamma. So there is a difficulty about calculating merit. The Buddha does actually provide a very clear guidance on how to calculate merit. Okay, we see that in Dakkhina Vibhanga Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya's discourse number 142, where at the end of the discourse, you'll have to be patient when you read it. So at the end of the discourse, we will find out a numerical computation instruction on how to find out how much merit have you got for each donation. Okay? And the commentaries to that text provide even additional details on how to really count your merit. So the Dakkhina Vibhanga Sutta suggests that if we give something valuable to an animal, then it will get back to us 100 times. If we give something valuable to a bad person who kills, steals, commits adultery, tells lies, drinks alcohol, takes drugs, we will get the reward 1,000 times. If we give something valuable to, for example, meal, to a virtuous person who follows the 5 precepts, who never kills, never steals, never commits adultery, never tells lies, never drinks alcohol, never takes drugs, then we will get the reward 100,000 times. These are exact numbers given by the Buddha himself. If we give something valuable, such as a meal, to an ascetic who is not a Buddhist, who does not follow the Buddhist teachings, but he follows higher morality, okay, who is not having wife or husband, who lives in the forest and tries to meditate, tries to achieve something, then the reward is 100,000 times 100,000, okay, which is 10 to the power of 10. And then suppose that we give a meal to someone who is almost enlightened, who is working super hard and they're almost enlightened. So to that person, if we give something, then the merit will be incalculable. Okay, following that that logic, that mathematical logic, it would have to be 10 to the power of 20. But notice that when you gave something to an immoral person, when you give something to an immoral person, you would get 1,000. When you give something to a moral person, you get 100,000. So you see, it was not 10, it was not just power of 2. It wasn't like 1,000 times 1,000, so 1,000,000. It became 100,000. You see, it's less. So could it be 10 to the power of 20? Could it be 10 to the power of whatever else? The Buddha says uncountable. So what does that mean, uncountable? Actually, the Buddha, when he says uncountable, it does not necessarily mean that it's uncountable. Sometimes it does, not always. When the Buddha says, for example, asankyeya, so the period that is not countable, still the Burmese people will give you the exact number, how long time, how many years that lasts. And that exact number, by the way, is actually implied in the sub-commentaries. So the calculability of the merit is provided by the Buddha himself, but at the same time, the Buddha elsewhere explains how it is extremely hard to calculate it anyway. So it's more of a comparison sheet rather than as an exact calculation instruction. So we will know that if we give something to an animal, the merit will be less than if we give something to a virtuous person. And we also here know 100% sure that giving necessities and things that they need, giving things to evil people who kill, steal, commit adultery, tell lies, drink alcohol, take drugs, is a merit. It is a good thing. Okay, it is a good thing to give bad people something that's valuable. My explanation is that we give them things that actually reduce their need to do the evil. For example, somebody steals because they're poor, so we will give them meal so that they do not steal. And that's how we get the merit. Okay, not that we give them things so that we support them in doing bad things, not at all. So, because there is much more diversity and variety into merit, because sometimes when you give, what also affects the merit, and the Buddha explains this a lot in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha explains that a lot of things affect the merit from our own side. Okay, so from our side, there's a lot of things we can do. For example, we can investigate what the other person needs. If we do, that increases the power of the merit. So we give the other person something that's valuable to them, not only to us. But we need to think that it is valuable to them. Okay, it's not like, oh, I have here something to throw into the trash, but maybe it will be valuable to someone else. No, it's not valuable to us, therefore it is not valuable. It's not a big merit, even if it might be potentially valuable to someone else. Only when it is valuable to us and also to the other person, and we need to see the value. Okay, it doesn't mean that we need it. Okay, we need to see the value. So for example, let's say you have a piece of meat, but you're a vegetarian. Oh, you got a piece of meat, somebody gave it to you because they like you or whatever, but they didn't know you're a vegetarian. So now that piece of meat has no value to you in the sense that you do not need it. But it has a value because you see, hey, this is a value. This is a valuable thing. It could be sold. It is fresh. It is fresh. It is complete. It is whatever, edible, and so on. So then you know that it is valuable. Okay, it is not needed, but it is valuable. And that's where you can give it to someone who might also need it, not only see its value. Also, it's very important to give with respect. So if we give things to other people in Myanmar, you would usually exhibit respect by giving it by both hands. So you hold the thing by both hands, and that means it's respectful, done, super easy. So when you give it with respect, but of course in mind is more powerful, in mind, then that also increases your merit. if you give at the right time, so you do not give things when the other person is busy or when they're disappointed with you or something else, we try to give things at the time when the other person is ready to accept them, when they are there, present, and when they will understand, aha, this is for me. This is not you're like punishing me or you are thinking that I'm bad. You're actually giving me something because you want to support me. You want to support my health, my happiness, my success. And another thing is that it needs to be given according to the rules. Suppose if you give alcohol, then sorry, it's actually not a giving. It's actually a bad deed. If you give somebody, for example, an awesome residence in the jail, then that is a gift, but it is not a good gift. So sorry, it's a bad deed. Imprisoning someone is actually a bad deed, by the way. Suppose you give someone an animal to kill, for example, a cow or a chicken or something like that. Sorry, that's a bad deed. Giving animals is a bad deed. If you give an animal to someone to take care of, then that of course is a good deed. But giving them to kill, to eat, that's not. If you give someone pictures, images, videos with sensually arousing thematics, we know what we talk about. So that also is a bad deed. That's specifically told by the Buddha. Imagine what they did during the Buddha's time. And giving someone punishment, okay, giving them blows or giving them weapons, the same thing, giving them poisons with the intention that they will use them to do bad deeds. That also is a bad deed. It's not a gift at all. So we need to understand that the complexity of generosity is extremely huge. And that's also why the Buddha said that thinking about kamma, trying to understand kamma, the action and the reward, is not leading to complete understanding. We cannot actually think and fully understand kamma. No way. If we do, either we will have a headache or we will think and think and think and think and think. And then when we are 100 years old or 120 years old or 160 years old, like Venerable Bakula, then we will die without still understanding. So it doesn't make any sense. Either it wastes your time or it wastes your health. And still, the Buddha provides a lot of explanation about kamma to help us better understand that it's good to dedicate ourselves to good deeds and to avoid bad deeds. All right, so that's what I basically explained. Unwise giving. Good. So the Buddha here is talking about, or the sub-commentaries more exactly, are talking about unwise giving. So unwise giving is still giving, and it is good, and that's extremely awesome to give without wisdom. For example, you give food and you don't really think about it, or you don't know that it gives a merit, or you're not a Buddhist, or whatever else. So you do not have the wisdom of Four Noble Truths. You do not understand impermanence and satisfactoriness, not self. You do not really understand the process or what are the necessities to give. That still is actually extremely good to give. All right. We absolutely want to have giving happening in the world. We want everybody to give, whether they understand Four Noble Truths or not, whether they want to achieve enlightenment or not. That is always the secondary thing. The first thing is to give. Second thing is to understand. So, unwise giving means that it leads to rebirth. Okay, it doesn't lead to nibbana. In Asian countries, in Asian Buddhist countries, it is very much recommended to give with the wish to achieve nibbana, because that is the so-called wise giving. You give with the wisdom that this gift can lead you towards a permanent reward, not a temporary reward. And a permanent positive reward is always better than a temporary one. Oh, that's explained over here. So many people give because they want to be born in heaven, or they want to be rich or famous or successful or whatever else. But that's understood as unwise giving. Then there is possibility to give with the wish to achieve nibbana, which does not in any way affect your gain of heaven and riches and fame and success and so on. Not at all. That's the interesting thing. Wishing to achieve nibbana for your gift will actually bring you all of the worldly pleasures as well. So that's how it is. Very wise. So we have about 25 minutes for the 4 times larger story. So let's see if we can get through. The story of Vaḍḍhakīsūkara-jātaka speaks about a military strategy. And this military strategy, there are actually 3 military strategies explained in the commentary and in the subcommentary. And we will absolutely look at them because this is fascinating. It's not fascinating that these are strategies, but it's fascinating that the scriptures talk about strategies. Okay, so I'll repeat that. Many of you maybe didn't understand. So what is so fascinating? What is so awesome? Not the specific details about the military strategies, but the fascinating, the interesting thing is that the scriptures describe these strategies. The describing fact, the fact that the scriptures talk about military strategy, that is interesting. And that is what I want to point out here through the details of the military strategies that come directly from the ancient scriptures. And this might be also very important for understanding of how Burmese military works at some points, because we can see when we really study a lot about Burmese military, we will see that they actually are very well aware of these strategies, and they employ these strategies for whatever are their goals. And that's, I believe, very interesting. So you have scriptures that describe military strategies, and then you have reality where governments, real governments, follow these instructions for military strategies from the ancient scriptures until today. So, military strategy. So what happened? The story from the Buddha's time is that the king Pasenadi of Kosala, he needed to conquer, I think his nephew or somebody, his family member, Ajatasattu, who recently killed his father, which we call patricide. So he committed patricide. Patri is the father, and the side here indicates killing, so killing father, patricide. So he killed his father. And after he killed his father, his mother was so sad that her husband died that she died by grief, by the sadness itself. So King Pasenadi of Kosala was not happy because these were his family members as well. So he was not happy about his nephew or whoever. He was not happy, and he wanted to show Ajatasattu that Ajatasattu needs to be punished, that this is not okay. And so King Pasenadi of Kosala, he waged war with Ajatasattu, but he was not successful because Ajatasattu was more successful. Ajatasattu applied better strategies, and so the king always lost again and again and again and again. And then the king Pasenadi of Kosala is thinking, so what am I going to do now? I need to conquer Ajatasattu, but I don't know how to do that. And then his advisors tell him, you know what? Actually, these Buddhist monks, they're pretty clever. How about we listen to them secretly when they talk in their huts? You will see even until today, Burmese monks, they love to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Something very interesting that I didn't see so much in the Sri Lankan monks. So that is already from the Buddha's time. It's very good to talk, especially if it's about Dhamma. But sometimes, and you will see now, it's not really about Dhamma. So the king dispatched spies, and these spies were spying at the huts of the monks. And the spies, as they were, you see it here illustrated, spies of the king in a little weird attire. They're spying on the monks discussing. And they happen to come across Venerable Dhanugahatissa. The name is very funny here because Dhanugaha means, Dhanu means, that's not actually mentioned in the commentaries because the commentaries are in Pali, so you're supposed to understand it right away. The translations do not translate the name. So the name, by the way, means Dhanu is a bow, Uggaha means to grab. Bow grab. That's the name of the monk, bow grab. Venerable bow grab. Tissa means that he is very beloved. Okay, it literally means he is the firstborn and the only born child of the family. But in the usage, it actually means beloved child of the family. So the bow grab, beloved son. Okay, so the bow grabber is the best person to explain the strategy. And so the spies are listening to Venerable Bow Grabber, Dhanugahatissa, how he explains to his friend his frustration with the king Pasenadi of Kosala. He says, "Oh, you see, this king Pasenadi of Kosala, the only thing he can do is to destroy his rice when he eats it to actually digest it, but he cannot destroy the army of the king Ajatasattu." So this is actually the explanation of the metaphor is given in the sub-commentaries. So the metaphor says that the king, Pasenadi of Kosala, he is to eat rice, and then he is able to destroy that rice by chewing it and digesting it in his stomach. But he is not able to actually digest or to destroy the army of Ajatasattu. So Venerable Bograbber or Dhanugaha is disappointed and he's sharing his frustration with his friend and he explains what should be done instead. And he explains the strategy that the king Pasenadi of Kosala should do. And in the meantime, the spies are listening to that strategy. We will go over that strategy very soon. Actually, right now. So the strategy is that, and we have it on another slide over here. So here we have some military strategy explanation. So he explains, the Venerable Bow Grabber explains that that the King Pasenadi of Kosala, because his army is apparently small or not as strong as the army of Ajatasattu, they need to stand. They need to avoid the number strategy. Okay, so the number and power of the King Ajatasattu's military is bigger. So on a flat plain, without any walls, without any boundaries, the army of King Ajatasattu will always win because they are more numerous and because they're stronger. So the strategy to win here is to destroy the problem of the number and actually have a small number of the soldiers of King Pasenadi of Kosala waiting at one point along a path that goes between the mountains. So it's a narrow path. There is not enough space. And that's how you will have the King Ajatasattu's army to go in small numbers to approach the small army of the King Pasenadi of Kosala. And as they are approaching, you will have small armies by the sides of the mountains waiting to ambush these smaller numbers as they go along the path. And that's what then the King Pasenadi of Kosala exactly did. He followed exactly that strategy from Venerable Bow Grabber. And he won. He won, but because he's the Buddha's disciple, he either didn't kill, or at least he did not kill King Ajatasattu. He got him alive, and now comes the very interesting shock. He forgave. He forgave to his nephew, and he gave him his daughter in marriage, which I just found so funny. Anyway, so that's what happened. I will tell you here very interesting information which you will not find in any of the commentaries or sub-commentaries. You will instead find it in Mahavamsa, the historical chronicle of Sri Lanka. And in this chronicle, we learn that after Ajatasattu got married, he had actually he had a child. Well, soon during that time, and when he had a child, when he gave birth to his when his wife gave birth to the child, that child later killed his dad too, another patricide. And then that child, when the child, as adult, after killing his father, also got a new child, and that child also killed this child. So there was a patricide after patricide after patricide after patricide. There were 10 patricides. Can you imagine a lineage of 10 patriciders? So, can you imagine what the people of the country were thinking about their king? Wow, look at that. Our king killed his father, and now he's killed by his son. And this son is also killing his father, and he is also killed by his son. So, that is insane, to say the least. That is still a good word. So, after 10 patricides, after these 10 different 10 identical patricides, 10 generations of patriciders, the people of the country decided we don't want to have that kind of thing in our country. Nope. And they, because that's what worked in India, they removed the 10th patricider from the throne and they established one of ethically living persons onto the throne as the king. Okay, so the people were actually able to remove the king and to replace the king by someone better. So the king Ajatasattu is the first of the 10 generations of father killers. Okay, so that was the strategy, and now the past life. I think we are doing pretty well. So now the past life, the Buddha explains this was not the first time. It's not like the Buddha would say, oh, the monks, they should not discuss war strategies. No, the Buddha said something else. Surprise. Instead, the Buddha said, oh, this monk, he was also a strategist in his past life, and I will tell you the strategy. Actually, the monk in his past life was a pig, a wild pig, a boar. And this wild pig was cared for by a carpenter. So we know this wild pig as a carpenter's wild pig. Carpenter's boar. So you need to remember what it is, okay? Carpenter's boar means a wild boar, the little swine that was cared for by a carpenter, by a human. And as this human carpenter was gradually taking care of this wild boar, the wild boar was very meek, very nice, and it was helping the carpenter in falling the trees or felling the trees and preparing the carpentry, whatever, the tools as well, and so on. So very clever, very helpful wild boar. But then when the wild boar became big, the carpenter worried that some other people may steal the wild boar, kill it, and eat it. So the carpenter instead sent the wild boar back into the nature. So the wild boar went into the nature. The wild boar found a large, would you say, flock of boars, or herd is maybe better, but herd is not herded in this case. So anyway, the wild boar found a large group of wild boars, and he thought he will live with them. But they said, you know what, friend? It's dangerous because we have a tiger, and the tiger is coming here every night to attack us. And then the tiger kills one of us, and then that's a problem. So you will be in danger here. And the wild boar says, don't worry, there are 3 military strategies, and we will be talking about them soon. So there are lotus strategy, there is wheel formation, and then there is cart formation. So we know 3 military strategies, how to form your soldiers. You can form them in the lotus strategy, which was used by the wild boar. You will find out. And then you have the cart formation, which was used by the king Pasenadi of Kosala. So the cart formation, that was when you had these small packs of soldiers by the flanks, that means by the sides, of the incoming enemy army, and they were attacking, ambushing the enemy army from the sides. So here we have the wild boar strategy, how to attack the tiger. So the strategy is to have the weakest, the smallest members of the army. In this case, it will be the little pigs and the female swines, and to have in the center, and then you have the strongest ones in the outer circle. So this is how it looks like. So what does it? What is that useful for? It creates a huge army, which is intimidating. So there's a lot of psychological warfare, especially from the wild boar. He knows the Lotus military strategy. So that's what he tells them. So these boars, together with the piglets and with the swines and so on, as a huge army, approach the place of the tiger instead of waiting for the tiger to come instead. And as they approach the den of the tiger, they wait there. The tiger comes out, and surprise, you have here a huge army of extremely strong wild boars. He doesn't see what's behind the wild boars. He just see that this is a huge a herd, could we say, of wild boars. So he is scared. The tiger is scared, and then the tiger is like, "What's going on?" And he sighs, and then they all also sighs, and then he stretches himself, and then they all also stretches. Whatever he does, the huge army repeats. What does that happen? That's another psychological warfare, because by copying exactly what the tiger does, so you have one single tiger, and then you have 1,000 wild boars, and these 1,000 wild boars, although they're much weaker than the tiger, they do exactly the same thing as the tiger. So how would you feel? You would feel, wow, there are thousands of tigers because they're like me. You start to compare them to yourself. Instead of thinking, they're weak, they cannot do anything. No, you compare them to yourself because they do the same thing as you do. And so the tiger ran away. The tiger ran away. But that's not the end of the story. The tiger ran away. The wild boars won, but that was just the battle, not the war yet. The war was not won. And the tiger knew an ascetic close by, and the ascetic was poking fun of the tiger. Wahaha, you were so strong, and now you're running away. And the tiger is like, what can I do? Like, they came up to me with so many boars, and they were copying exactly what I'm doing. And so the ascetic gave the tiger an advice. Well, you know what, dear tiger? If you actually jump at them, they will all immediately run away, and you can easily catch them and kill them. And the tiger believed the ascetic. That's the point. So here we have the shocking thing, and that is that the wild boar, the carpenter's boar, the leader of them all, already expected that. And we will see, what did he prepare for the tiger? Because the wild boar is super smart. So to understand the strategy, we will first have to learn a little bit how to harvest rice, believe it or not. So harvesting rice in ancient India was done with a winnowing basket. It's also called winnowing fan. So to separate the rice grain from the chaff, that's the skin around the seed. So when the rice grows, you maybe have seen rice. So that's actually the rice seeds in a kind of skin, in shells. It's called chaff. And if we want to eat the rice, we don't want to eat the chaff, right? So we need to separate the rice grain from the chaff, from the shell. And to do that, you will put the rice seeds, the rice grains with the chaff into a basket like this. And as you are throwing the basket, then the chaff, which is much lighter than the grain, physically will escape from the basket, and the grain will be left alone in the basket. So that's what the winnowing fan does. And it's very important to remember how exactly the winnowing fan looks like, because that's what we will be using. So now the boar, the carpenter's boar, had other wild boars to dig holes for him. So there was one small hole, and right behind that one small hole, but that was reversed. So you need to think of it like reverse. So there's a hole, and there is a ramp, and the ramp starts over here, and then it goes gradually down towards right. Okay. So the boar, the carpenter's boar, when the tiger will be jumping at the carpenter's boar, will be standing in between. Now you need to understand that the carpenter's boar was super intelligent, but he was weak, and that was part of the strategy. I'll explain. So now think about the boar standing here between the two holes. Unfortunately, again, the second hole is reversed. We need to think of it as starting by the left side. And so during the second battle, the tiger saw this weak wild boar, and he thought, oh, this is a weak wild boar. I'll just catch him right away. So we already knew, or the carpenter's boar already knew where exactly will the tiger go attack. And that is on him. Super easy. So he just prepared himself to be the prey of the tiger. And then when the tiger jumped at the wild boar quickly fell into the hole right in front of himself. Okay. So the tiger, as it was flying in the air, could not do anything, but the wild boar was already gone, okay, in the hole. The tiger then fell right between the holes, and as it was continuing, it actually toppled down the slope. Again, you need to understand that the slope should be reversed. He fell down into the pit, into the pit, which ends with a wall. So as the tiger fell down, as it was rolling over and over and over, and it crashed into the wall, it was disoriented, it was confused. And that's the point, that's the moment when the wild boar, when the carpenter's boar jumped out of the hole, came up to the tiger, and killed, massacred the tiger, who was confused and disoriented, and pretty much harmed by the wall. So that's what we got. The sub-commentary is poking fun of the tiger, saying that as the tiger was so much disoriented and confused, its paws were together as if it was praying. It's a joke, by the way. So then, as the wild boar massacred the tiger, it recuperated five five internal organs that are understood as very tasty, the so-called sweet flesh, sweet meat. And that is lung, heart, liver, kidney, spleen. Is this important? I'll probably leave it up to you whether it's important. I'm sharing with you what is in the ancient scriptures. Then the sub-commentaries. Oh, that's awesome. We have 3 minutes for that. What you should take 3 minutes. So then the ancient scriptures explain the tradition of coronation. So because the wild boar, the carpenter's boar was able to remove all of the enemy, and there was some more massacre with the ascetic, but you can read about that later. So because he was able to eliminate both the tiger and also the ascetic, and that one is a little bit too much graphic, so we'll leave it up to your own study. But because the carpenter's boar was successful, the other boars coronated him as their king. They got a younger lady wild boar, and they made him the king with the queen over the kingdom of the wild boars. And the Buddha says that this was the origin of the royal custom of anointing the kings on fig wood chairs. Okay, so he was anointed. That means he was basically ordained or made a king on a fig wood stump. And since then, humans somehow found out about that. That one is not explained. And to coronate a king, you would be sitting on a fig wood chair, and then you would be sprinkled over by water. What kind of water? It's actually water from the ocean. Sorry, the water is from the river Ganges, and the conch, the cup, is from the ocean. So we'll have here a nice illustration of different conches. Let me see, where is that? Here it is. So you have coronation done with right, what's that called? Right spiraling conch. Right spiraling conch, it's a conch from the ocean, pouring water from the Ganges, from the river Ganges over the king, by the Brahmin lady. And then you have, so by the royal lady, but that I think is not accurate here. It felt to me like the translation at least said that it is Brahmin lady, then the royal lady, and then the merchant lady. But anyway, that's what we have here. So Brahmin, this is the royal lady. I think that's actually his, should be definitely his queen. And then we have a Brahmin priest, also pouring water, but he's using silver conch. And then we have a merchant lady or gentleman here, pouring Ganges water over the king using the 7-jewel conch or the golden conch. And that is all. There will be some more details, but I believe they're not essential. Thank you, everybody, for coming here today. We are completely out of time. We were talking about 2 Jātakas today, so hopefully it will not mix up in your head. And we were discussing generosity. We were discussing military strategies. How can we understand that military strategies are somehow related to Dhamma? How come that they're in the scriptures? That will be up to you, because the commentaries and sub-commentaries do not explain why the Buddha was talking about military strategies to the monks. On the other hand, because it was the Buddha who was describing the wild boar strategy, so be careful, the Buddha himself also described a military strategy. One reason could be to basically satiate the monks with the topic such that they don't talk about it anymore. It's a behavioral strategy, by the way. Another reason could be to show to the monks that indeed there are ways how everybody will suffer anyway, that there is always suffering and it's needed. And if you have a good way, then you can get rid of the suffering. So we could take it as a metaphor. Okay, so the desires, the anger, the delusion, greed, hatred, ignorance, that is the tiger that is attacking us, and we have to employ a good strategy to completely vanquish and destroy desire, anger, and delusion. Maybe that's the way how to see it. Again, the commentaries, sub-commentaries do not provide this interpretation. Or maybe we can just see it as the temporary part of the world. So as we always try to resolve problems, vanquish our enemies, we then get another one and another one and another one. So for example, Venerable Dhanuggaha, the bow grabber, beloved son, he, in his past life, he employed a strategy and he won. Then he died, and here we are again. We need to employ a strategy to win again. So we try, we win, we try, we win, we try, we win, and like this again and again and again and again and again. So the cycle never ends. We always have a trouble, we need to find a strategy, and we need to win. The problem is that we don't win always. Sometimes we lose anyway, even though we employ strategy. Again, this thing is not in the commentary, subcommentaries, but this is the way how we can think about it so that it enriches our Dhamma life. As you have seen from the last week, this week, but if you have any questions, please make sure that you do not get to ask here in the chat. You can always ask me in a private message in WhatsApp. And I hope that you enjoyed this information-rich lecture and that we will all meet beautifully again next week. And next week, we will be having our last meeting where I will be explaining the Jātakas. And then we have yet another meeting which will be concluding where I will be summarizing things and you will have more opportunities to actually ask questions. So we have 2 more meetings next week and the week after that. May you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you be successful in everything you do.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you so much.